Hello? Are we live? There's a little bit of a delay. Let me just double check. Hi, hi. What's up, everybody? How is everyone? Ozzy, you're here. You made it. Hi, Ozzy. I hope it's not too early for you. We're live. Hey, thanks, Chuck. I'm gonna hang up my menu. And then, yeah, I've got my whole workspace here, which we're gonna toggle in between so you guys can get a close-up. And then once we move over to the stove, we've got another camera for that. It's kind of crazy. I think Chuck was saying he created a behind the scenes video that he's going to try and upload, and we'll edit and then upload to YouTube. So we'll hopefully have that for you guys so you can see how we put all this together. It's quite the production. So for this recipe, guys, well, first you're gonna need a cutting board. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. We gotta make pasta dough first. That's step one, pasta dough, which we're gonna make by hand. You can do this a number of different ways. You can do it in a bowl. You can do it even in your stand mixer if you want to. But I'm gonna go ahead and just do it on the counter like they do in Italy. It's the most fun anyway. You get in there with your hands and everything. We are basically just gonna lay out a bunch of flour on the work surface here, and then we're gonna mix in eggs and salt and olive oil. The recipe calls for 2 cups of flour. This is nice because you don't have to sift it, and literally just pour it right on the counter. If you have kids, or if you have niece and nephews, if you hang around kids ever, this is a fun thing that they can do and they can help with. So we've got our pile here. We want to make a well in the center. We're going to put 3 whole eggs in here, which is going to fill it up pretty quickly. We're going to need to make quite a bit of space. But you do want there to be a little bit of a wall around the edge so that it doesn't go flying over into the counter. If it does, we'll still catch it. It'll be fine. Before we start cracking the eggs, I'm gonna go ahead and put the salt in here. Calls for a teaspoon of salt. That's really just like a good 3-finger pinch. I'm not really gonna measure it. If you want to, you can, but unlike baking, cooking, you can totally kind of wing it sometimes. So we've got our flour and our salt. We're also gonna need, I believe it's a tablespoon of olive oil. Yes, but I'm gonna put that in after I put the eggs in. Into the well of flour, go ahead and crack your eggs. Now, if you watched my baking stream, you know that I like to crack my eggs on a flat surface versus like the edge of a bowl. And that's because it makes a nice indent like that to where you're not gonna get too many shards of shell. You risk the chance of getting shards is much less. So to this 2 cups of flour, we have 3 eggs. And now we can add the olive oil. And it calls for a tablespoon. I am gonna measure this because I can kind of eyeball a teaspoon, but a tablespoon, especially liquid form, don't always have the best luck with that. So, tablespoon of olive oil going in. So we've got our whole little mixture here. So now we just have to pierce the yolks. And so now we're just gonna literally start beating the eggs in the center of this well. And what's gonna happen is the flour is gonna incorporate slowly but surely around the edges. And you can help it along. Mix until we get a good craggy dough going and it's no longer real eggy, or real liquidy, I should say. And then we'll start using our hands. It's also kind of calming. So yeah, you don't even need a bowl for this recipe. You can literally just use your countertop. Now, do make sure it's wiped down. I had to really clean my countertop before we started this. It had some remnants of cooking oil and previous stuff that I've cooked here. But yeah, start like going around the edges. All right, so you can see it's getting much more firm. It's not quite a liquid anymore. So I'm gonna remove the rest of that from the fork and start using my hands. So it's still obviously very liquidy, but if you just kind of bring the flour in, you're gonna start, a little dough is gonna start to form. And this is fun. You can just kind of like play with it. You're just getting all the wet covered in the flour now. And you'll see it's gonna get all craggly like this. Making pasta dough, even like any kind of dough is just, it's very, I don't know. There's a little bit of like therapy going on with this because it's, I don't know. The texture's nice. It's not, you're not doing anything super fast. You can see it's still really scraggly, and all this flour may not be incorporated, but, and that's okay. We're just trying to get it to a nice little dough. So the inside of this is still pretty wet. If anybody has never kneaded dough before, you kind of use this motion of gathering it up and pushing it out, and then just keep doing that. I think all the flour that's going to be incorporated probably is. This is the 19 Daisies cooking show. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We do need to knead this for quite a bit. That's the only downside. I mean, I like it. Personally, I think kneading dough is relaxing. You need to do this for about 10 minutes, I think the recipe said. Now, if you were doing this in your stand mixer with a dough hook, I think it would probably only take about 5 maybe. So this is coming together. So you can see it's still like got tears in it. This will eventually kind of become one cohesive little ball of dough, but it does take a little bit of kneading to get there. I'm turning it as I go. You kind of push it, turn it, push it, turn it, and you're constantly bringing it over itself like this. And what that does is it constantly brings the outside to the inside, as well as making the edge here nice and smooth. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm almost kind of getting out of breath a little bit. This is what they did in the old days. They didn't have no KitchenAids. You had to get in there with your elbow grease. I think this is good. So you can see we've got like, there's a little bit of a hole there, and that's just from us doing the kneading. But this is looking really good. This feels good. So it feels just like Play-Doh at the moment. But what we need to do is we need to let it rest and for at least 30 minutes. And while it rests, it's gonna, all that gluten that we just rolled into it is gonna relax a little bit, and then it's gonna allow us to roll it out. So yeah, you can see there's a bit of flour that got left over, but the dough tells you when it's had enough flour. What, Riley? My hands are all doughy. I can't pick you up yet. So I'm just gonna put my dough in a plastic bag and put it aside, and we will come back to it. We will revisit that little guy very soon. So the meat that's in this recipe is, we have a little bit of pancetta, beef, and pork. This is called a bench scraper. And as you can see, some of the dough got kind of stuck to the work surface. And so it's a great way to just get all the gunkiness off there. You guys want to say hi to Riley? Come here. Oh. All right, I'll try not to cover up my microphone, but say hi, Riley. This is how I hold Riley. All right, so I've got my cutting board now. Okay, so this recipe is pretty easy. 1 onion, and then we need 1 celery and 1 carrot chopped. And that's really all we have to do for the prep work. I do need to chop up the pancetta a little bit more fine, so I'll do that last. First thing I'm gonna do is peel the carrot. Cut off the edge and the tip. Now we do want this kind of fine, because basically what we want in the end is we want everything to look like that. So that's a really small chop on everything, on the onion, on the carrot. Carrots are round, makes it hard to chop, right? So I'm gonna show you some tricks for that. So first, let's get it to a manageable level in at least in half. And then from here, we can cut it in half. You always want a flat surface to be able to chop things with, right? So then from here, we can cut it into long strips. And if you hold the knife, if you have your fingers tucked in and you hold the knife against your knuckles, you won't cut yourself. In fact, it gives you really good control over the knife because you're holding onto the food as well as knowing where the blade of the knife is. So we've got some long strips here, and I can probably go even smaller with these. I'm probably gonna cut these in half as well, and that'll give us really tiny little squares to cut. Chuck, did you just make a cameo? Did he steal a beer? So now we have all these long strips, about, I don't know, a little more than 1/4 inch thick. So then just take the whole bundle, turn it on its side, and start making little chops this way. So there we go. I think that's a good little cut, very finely chopped. So I'm going to continue to cut the rest of the carrot that same way. Wine has been delivered, guys. Cheers! Thank you. Time to chop the celery. So celery, same thing. I'm just going to trim off the edges just because they've got a little bit of, they're dry, so get rid of that. But we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to chop it in half once and then chop it into strips. Anyone else like the smell of celery? A fine chop for these. Et voila. Oh my God, I just realized you guys are gonna get to see me wear my onion goggles. If you guys are like me, and here I'll go to the big face for this one so you guys can see my onion goggles. Oh dang. Hello. We've got behind the scenes cam. All right. All right, guys, so these are the onion goggles. They have a nice little thick bit of foam padding around the edge, and I look silly, but they totally work. So laugh it up if you like, but they totally work. If we're only using half, then I'm just gonna cut this guy in half, straight down the middle, root and everything in. That way, onions chop much easier if you keep the root intact. I'm just gonna trim off that edge right there. Onions, you can cut multiple different ways. The way I was taught, and the first time I did this, I cut myself, so fingers crossed, everybody. So what I do is I cut down this way, I'm probably gonna do one, I'm gonna do 3 because I want them about the same size as the carrot and celery. So I'm gonna cut this way, and then I'm gonna cut this way, and then I'm gonna cut this way. So the only problem with this, so you can see I cut one slice there, but you can't go all the way through because you need to keep the root intact. But the only problem with this is it's really hard to cut a straight line when you're going horizontal. So you just have to be careful. So if you put your palm of your hand up like this and very easily, see, I always have to get my hand in there a little bit. God, I'm gonna cut myself. So then I've got 2 cuts there. I've got one there and one there. So I've got 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna do one more at the top, very carefully. There we go. So again, we want tiny little pieces of onion. So you can see I'm making cuts about that big, and I'm gonna go all the way around. But I don't want the tip of my knife to go past here because then I'm going to cut the whole piece off. So that's going in one direction, and now we'll go the other direction. And this one's obviously a lot easier to keep straight because you're going straight down. So now we've got cuts this way, and as you can see, when you start cutting it off the actual onion, you'll get nice little chunks. And some of these end pieces you'll see, they didn't quite, because they were at the bottom, they didn't quite get to the, I wasn't able to cut them. So I'll take those and just do a quick little chop on those. See, look at this, look how much half of an onion. So I promise I will cook up that onion in another recipe later in the week, I promise. So, pancetta, here we go. So this is already cubed, but it's just a touch bigger than this guy. So I'm actually gonna chop it just a little bit finer. You don't have to do this. You can absolutely, you can have your Ragu as chunky as you like. ASMR chopping, watch my 19 days. Once we're done chopping this, we can start rolling out the pasta. There we go. Boom. Oh, here you go, guys. Sweet, sweet washing action. Hang on, I need a drink. Oh my gosh, you guys. So this just resting for 10 minutes or however long it's probably been closer to 20. It's like so soft now. The dough, if you push into it, you can see it springs back. We are ready for our pasta roller. You don't have to have one of these, but this is a pasta roller. It's very simple. It's just got 2 rollers here, and then you have the crank that goes in, and you literally just roll the pasta through the rollers. Now, you do need it to be stable, so it also comes with a clamp. So you can see I'm just clamping this down. So there we go. Look at this dough. Oh my goodness. That is like so soft and nice. So that's really nice dough, if I do say so myself. Holy moly. I'm gonna take my bench scraper and literally just cut it down the middle. And I'm gonna put this other half back in the bag. I'm gonna put a little bit of flour here, just so I have it. But basically all we need to do now is just get the dough slightly thin enough to start rolling it. So I'm gonna put some flour down and some flour on top of the dough. So you want it covered totally. And then you could do this with your hands. You could just flatten it out like this. You wanna keep it kind of narrow because we do wanna get it through the rollers, which is a certain, you know, you can only have so much width to work with there. So you can just use your hands, but I am gonna pull out my rolling pin and get it going a little bit. So I think this might be thin enough. We're gonna start rolling. I'm also gonna put a little bit of flour in the rollers. It's working so far. So again, we are on the widest setting, and boom, that's step 1. Actually, I'm gonna do it one more time. I'm gonna send it through the roller one more time on this same setting. It sometimes takes a couple of tries through that first roll to get it the thickness you're looking for. So we'll do one more. Nice, all right. So we are gonna change our roller to number 2. I just basically squeezed the rolling pins or the rollers together a little bit closer. And we're gonna send it through again. All right, we're going up to number 3, guys. So because I'm only using, I only have one, I need one hand to crank. I'm basically holding the layer that it's going in, letting it gather at the bottom, and then kind of going back and forth until it's reached a short enough level that if it hangs over, it's not gonna rip. Woo, look at that long sheet. This is getting a little too long for me to handle, so I'm gonna cut it in half because we still have a little bit of ways to go. We're on to number 5 now. Sorry. Yeah, that is squeaky. We're going to number 6. We're doing it, doing it. Okay, that was number 6. Let's go number 7. I think this is a good thickness. I'm gonna stop there at number 7 and we'll cut it in a second, but let me go ahead and roll this other dough. So I'm gonna cover this with a towel, just so hopefully it doesn't dry out. We shall see as we continue on with this guy. So again, I'm gonna put this on top of here, cover that for just a second. So we're done rolling. Let me get this out of my way now. All right, little roller, thank you for your help. We're on the home stretch. Now, what you do to get noodles, I'm gonna trim off about this much. So I want a little bit more flour so it doesn't stick. But what you do is you just make little folds, kind of basically just fold it up. And then it makes it easy to cut, and you'll get really long ribbons. So roll it up into a little pocket like that. You can see all the rolls right there. I'm gonna trim off this little bit here. And you kind of want to not squish it. You don't want to push down. You want to do more of a sawing motion to get through it. So we just want about half an inch to an inch thick. So I'm just gonna go right about here. I'm just gonna eyeball it. I don't, you know, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Who says it has to be perfect? Gordon Ramsay. Since when do you make the rules? So now, if you did it right, there we go. We've got a really long Parpadelle noodle. You know what? I'm even gonna cut that in half. Et voila. We got noodles, guys. And because they're so wide, when you make Parpadelle, you don't need as many. Just make a little nest. I'm gonna place it right there. Okay. A little bit more flour. And that's the other thing with fresh noodles, is they take like seconds to cook. When you throw them in the boiling water, I swear, they cook in like probably 2 minutes is probably all it's gonna take. Look at that pretty noodle. Look at that pasta noodle, man. Look at that texture. Look at that. So since this is all done, I'm gonna put it on a baking sheet and let it chill out so it doesn't dry out or get sticky. Okay. There we go. All right, now that looks like a good amount of pasta for 2 servings. Okay, cover this up. Okay, guys, we can finally start cooking. I'm gonna use my very pretty Le Creuset. Is that how you pronounce these? Those fancy, heavy pans. But I got this as a gift and I love it. So I've got my ground beef and ground pork. So this is a pound of each. So I only need half of the beef and only a quarter of the pork for this. I'm gonna measure out 1 1/4 cups. So I am using Kitchen Basics original beef stock, low sodium. That's one thing I do recommend. If you don't make your own, which is also a great thing to do, if you buy store-bought broths or stock, always go low sodium, especially if you're gonna reduce it, because then it's gonna be too salty, and you can always adjust the salt levels on your own. And that's 1 1/2 cups. Heat on. Oh, let me switch. This recipe says to use a whole 1/4 cup of olive oil. So, I mean, I'm gonna do it. All right, we're going in. We're going in with everything. With the pancetta, onion, celery, and carrot. Season as you go. Anytime you're throwing stuff in a pan and then you add something else to it, add a little bit of salt, because the thing you just threw in needs to be seasoned. Pancetta is already salty, so I'm not adding as much as I normally would, but I do still want to add a little bit of salt to the vegetables to get them seasoned. What happens when you do that is you're building layers of flavor, and basically you're allowing the carrot flavor to slowly come through in the final dish when you season it at the beginning. You want to see my collection of spatulas? I'll show you guys while that cooks. So I've got some really cute ones. I have a bee one. I've got a heart one. So kind of a cute story. Whenever I make something, you know, something special for Chuck or my niece and nephew, I try and use the heart one. That way I'm always putting love into it. Oh man. Oh yeah. Oh god, it smells good already. We're getting some good brownage going. We do want the onions to get a little bit of color. I think that's looking good as far as color goes. As you can see, the pan, we've got a little bit of fond going on here. So when the meat juices are concentrated and they kind of stick to the pan, you want that. That's what's called fond. And it's basically just concentrated flavor. And once you add liquid to that, it's gonna release and just turn into this amazing, amazing concoction. You'll see. This is the ground beef. I only need half of this for this recipe. I only need a 1/4 pound of the pork, but I kind of want to use half. So I'm breaking the rules, doing what I want. You can't stop me recipe, I'm gonna do it. So we're just gonna mash this all up. And again, I'm gonna add salt to this in just a minute because I've added another ingredient into our pot here. Again, I'm just taking a nice good big pinch of salt. Don't be afraid of seasoning. Yeah, so this has got some good browning. We're just gonna make it get a little bit more. Because it went in there cold, it brought down the temperature of the pan, so it's not sizzling anymore. So I'm just bringing it back up to that sizzle so I can hear it. So that looks all browned. I don't see any more bits of pink meat in there. So I think we can go ahead and add the stock. Just gotta bring this to a boil. Bring this to a boil and then let it reduce. It's cooking. I'll show you guys. We've got Cambria Estate Winery, Julia's Vineyard, Pinot Noir from Santa Maria Valley. We're gonna crack that open for dinner. Cheers. I am gonna taste this for salt levels. It's boiling, so it's crazy hot, so. Oh, fuck. That's good. I'm not gonna add any salt. I think that's like very nicely seasoned. I might add salt later. When it reduces a little more, I'll check it again. What'd we get? Chuck drinking more wine? Chuck, you're in the next action scene. So you can see we still have quite a bit of liquid in there, but if you recall when we first poured it in, it was like the level was kind of up here. It was definitely above the layer of meat, but now it's right around in the middle. And so it's getting there. It's definitely not going to take 30 minutes for sure. But the pasta water, now that it is boiling, I'm going to season it. I use kosher salt and I use this diamond crystal. Kosher salt, guys, is really, really good. And what I've heard, when you cook pasta, what the Italians, this is what I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but what the Italians say is you want your pasta water to be as salty as the sea. So you really want the pasta water to be very, very salty because you're basically seasoning the pasta as it cooks. You don't want, like, if you don't, your pasta is just not gonna taste like anything. You're basically only tasting the sauce. So we are really reduced. Dang, that was fast, okay. I'm gonna add my tomato paste. 3 tablespoons. I'm not measuring, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. So here we go. I don't know if you guys can see that. I like how glossy that just got. Oh man, that's really good. It does need a little bit of salt. We are almost there, guys. We're ready to put the pasta in. That's looking good. So there, you can see there's a little bit of liquid on the bottom, and that's gonna soak, the pasta's gonna soak that up. So that's what we want. Here is our pasta ribbons. Pasta's going in. Now, when the pasta goes in, you do want to stir it a little bit. Once the pasta's done, it goes in the bowl, and the sauce just goes over the top. And bada bing, bada boom, our dinner is ready. I'm always impressed at how easy pasta is to make. I don't know, there's something really fun about it. I'm just gonna take it out and take a bite, literally. my God, that's so good. Okay, guys, pasta is ready. So I'm not gonna drain it. I'm just gonna take it straight out of the pan and put it in the bowls. So I'm just gonna take literally some of this pasta water and put it in our sauce. And it just adds a little extra something. So now all that's left, I'm gonna switch over to big counter, small face. Cosmic, we don't have garlic bread, but I do have like a loaf of French bread that I bought that we're gonna use to soak up some of that sauce. But here it is, guys. So yeah, there's our pasta. Chuck, do you wanna come in here and taste test with me? If you mix it up, you can see like the sauce coats the noodles. All right. Ooh. Ooh.
Fuck yes.
Oh, that's kind of good. This is pretty damn good.
Bye. I'm happy.
Thanks, Ozzy. Thank you so much. It's dinner time. Heck yeah. Guys, thank you so much. We did it. I can't believe we did it. Wow, that was almost a 3-hour stream. So that took way longer than it would normally take to cook this from start to finish. Obviously, streaming it, it's gonna take a little bit longer. But this is definitely something that beginners can do. It's a very forgiving recipe. You don't have to make the pasta dough from scratch. You can just buy regular pasta. But the sauce is really simple. And again, like the chopping that I did, you don't even have to do it that way. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it tastes really, really good. Guys, have a great, great night. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.